Hey guys, in today's video I bring you an impressive and chilling story. Let's meet Sable Lockwood, a woman who died for 14 minutes, but for her it was years on the other side. During that time she floated out of her body, passed through a mysterious mist, and arrived in a celestial realm, where she discovered truths that defy everything we know about life and death. But what will really leave you speechless is what happened inside the Grand Cathedral of Light, where three entities made her relive more than 5,000 memories from her life. What they revealed to Sable changed everything, and it could change your outlook on the world too. So, before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now get ready for this intense and transformative journey. My name is Sable Lockwood. 6 months ago, I died. It seems strange to say this out loud, but it's the truth. I was found lifeless, without a pulse, without breathing. The doctors recorded that I was clinically dead for exactly 14 minutes. But for me, it was years. I'm not the kind of person who blindly believed in life after death. I've always been curious about the subject, but I never thought I'd have the chance to know the answer so definitively. And even now, after everything I've been through, I still wonder how it is possible that something so immense could have happened to me. That night, I didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. It was just another day, like so many others. Elliot had already gone to sleep, and I stayed in the living room finishing a drawing that I couldn't get out of my head. My fingers traced random lines as if trying to form something that my mind didn't yet understand. The silence was absolute. Only the low noise of the refrigerator broke the tranquility of the apartment. After a while, I felt slightly dizzy. I didn't worry right away, but something about it felt off. My vision became a little blurry and I felt my heart racing. Maybe it was just tiredness. I decided to go to the bathroom to wash my face, thinking it would go away. The last thing I remember from this world was the porcelain sink approaching quickly, or rather, me falling against her. There was no pain, no real warning, just a sharp cut in reality. One moment I was there, conscious, and the next, everything was gone. Time simply stopped. After that, what came was something that no words could truly describe. I didn't know where I was. There was no transition, as if he had fallen asleep and woken up somewhere else. It was just the absence. But strangely, I still thought, I still felt. I couldn't see anything. But at the same time, I knew I wasn't alone. There was something around me, a silence that wasn't empty, but filled with something I couldn't name. Then, suddenly, I realized that I was above. My body wasn't solid, but I could see. I saw the bathroom. I saw my body lying on the cold floor, my legs bent in a strange way, my hair spread like a dark fan on the tile. I saw all this, but without feeling none connection with that body. There was no fear, no despair, not even urgency. If I were alive, I would have felt the shock of seeing myself lying like that. But I wasn't alive, I knew that. Time felt different to me. What happened next for Elliot was just minutes. For me, it lasted an eternity. I heard him wake up, his footsteps hurrying down the hallway. Sable? The tone of his voice was already alarmed, as if he knew something was wrong. He opened the bathroom door and stopped, frozen for a moment. His eyes widened. Then he knelt beside me, touching my face, shaking my shoulders. Sable, for the love of God, wake up. It didn't work. He pressed his fingers against my neck, searching for a pulse that wasn't there. His breathing became ragged. I felt his desperation as if it were being absorbed into the air around me. He took out his cell phone and dialed emergency with his hands shaking. My girlfriend. She fainted. She's not breathing. I can't feel her pulse. The dispatcher asked him to begin chest compressions. Elliot tried. I could see him pushing my chest hard, tears streaming down his face, his voice choking on words of pleading. But I knew it didn't matter. It wasn't there. And then, I heard the sirens. The siren sounded distant to me, even though I was there, on the roof of the apartment, watching everything. Time seemed fluid, distorted. When the paramedics entered, I could see every detail of their actions, but there was no rush for me. I saw them place my body on the stretcher. I felt the urgency in the touches, in the looks exchanged. They spoke quickly, medical codes that sounded technical and impersonal, but I understood every word. Female, approximately 37 years old, sudden unconsciousness, no response to stimuli, no pulse. Starting CPR. I saw the defibrillator being prepared. Shock made my body arch slightly, but I didn't feel anything. I just watched. 19 minutes. It was the total time of trying before they decided to transport her. There was no fear inside me, no despair. Just absolute peace, something I've never felt before in my life. It was as if I were sliding away, being enveloped by an indescribable lightness. As I rose higher, passing through the ceiling, I saw the city beneath me, a tapestry of light and shadow. I could hear conversations inside neighboring apartments, understand the scattered thoughts of people walking along the streets below. It wasn't that I was reading minds. It was more like I was tuned to a collective frequency, where everything was happening simultaneously, and I was absorbing fragments. Elliot got into the ambulance with me, holding my hand, even though I wasn't there to feel him. I saw his devastated expression when the paramedic said something on the radio. He looked up at the roof of the ambulance as if he had felt something. For a brief moment, I had the impression that you knew that I was there. And then, without warning, I felt something. A gentle touch on my shoulder. It was the first thing real that I felt since I died. A female voice murmured behind me, "You have to go now." Before I could react, something pulled me. The city disappeared, the ambulance disappeared, and darkness took over everything. There was nothing. No light, no sound, no sensation. Just absolute darkness. But somehow I knew that I wasn't alone. The feeling was difficult to describe. I wasn't falling, nor floating, but I also couldn't feel the ground beneath my feet. It was like being suspended in an endless void. Where am I? My voice echoed, but there was no mouth, no lips to speak. Just thought, projected into nothingness. Silence responded. I don't know how long I spent there. It could have been seconds or years. Time, as I knew it, no longer existed. Then suddenly something changed. A breeze came out of nowhere. It was warm, filled with an indescribable perfume, something between the smell of wet earth after rain and newly opened flower petals. The silence began to dissolve, replaced by a soft sound, like the first chord of a distant song. And then, I saw it. Up ahead, in the middle of the darkness, a golden shine. Weak at first, but growing quickly. It wasn't just any light. She vibrated. It pulsed like a living heart. The light attracted me, and before I could understand what was happening, I was sucked into it. Suddenly, the dark disappeared. I was in a field. The ground beneath my feet was covered in millions of flowers, all glowing in shades of blue, gold, and violet. They moved slightly, as if breathing, tilting gently as I passed. Each petal radiated, a soft, almost liquid light, and when I touched one, warmth ran through my skin. The sky above me was deep blue but sunless. There was just this golden light coming from every direction, bathing everything in a soft, welcoming glow. No horizon, I saw colossal mountains, so big that they seemed to touch the sky itself. They were not made of stone, but of a translucent, almost ethereal substance reflecting light like liquid diamonds. And then I knew. I was no longer in the world I knew. I stood there for a long time observing this new world with silent reverence. The ground beneath my feet felt soft, but not like ordinary grass. It was as if the flowers themselves recognized me, leaning toward me, greeting me in a way that needed no words. When I looked around, I realized that I wasn't alone. In the distance, At the foot of colossal mountains there were people, thousands of them, all radiating their own light, as if their essences were made of pure energy. Some walked alone, others talked in small groups. None of them seemed to notice me, but somehow I knew that we belonged to the same place. I wanted to take a step forward, but the moment I wanted to, my body, it was just there. There was no effort, no travel time, just intention. I looked down, surprised. My body still felt the same, but at the same time it was different. My clothes had changed into something fluid, almost ethereal. My skin subtly glowed, reflecting the ambient light. Curious, I thought about changing the color of my dress. Instantly, he turned into a celestial blue. My heart raced. I could shape this world with thought. I closed my eyes and thought of a melody. Soft and enveloping music began to emanate of myself. I could feel the notes rising from my being, flowing into the room as if they were part of the air itself. It was then that I understood. This place, it wasn't just a scenario. It was a realm shaped by consciousness. What I thought became real. The realization was both fascinating and overwhelming. Everything here responded to desire, but not in a chaotic way. There was an order, a balance, as if this world was not just a reflection of individual thoughts, but a collective construction of all the souls that were here. That's when a new thought popped into my mind. If I could change my appearance and the music around me, could I go further? With a simple wish, I projected myself forward, moving not by my feet, but by my own thoughts. And so I started exploring. I wandered that world for what seemed like an infinite amount of time. Every step, or rather every thought, took me to new places. First, I walked through flower-filled valleys, where bright streams flowed as if made of liquid light. Then I passed through forests of translucent trees, whose leaves looked like shards of shining glass. The air was light, almost non-existent, and every time I breathed, a feeling of renewal coursed through my being. Then I saw something on the horizon, a city. But it wasn't like any city I'd ever seen before. There, buildings rose to impossible heights, constructed not of stone or metal, but of pure energy. The structures vibrated in golden and silver tones, almost liquid, slightly changing shape as if they were breathing. There were no streets like on Earth. People, if they could still be called that, moved differently. Some used ladders that rose and disappeared as their feet touched the rungs. Others simply wanted to be somewhere else and appeared there, as if they were driven by an instantaneous thought. My heart accelerated. What was this place? With a single thought, I went to the entrance of the city. The portal before me was monumental, made of something similar to crystal but alive, pulsing. As soon as I stepped inside it, a soft chorus, it began to echo through the air as if the buildings themselves were singing. The city was an ever-changing light show. Translucent walls reflected the stars above, while beings of all forms moved in harmony. Some looked human like me, others were just luminous silhouettes, featureless, without defined shape, but all they radiated peace. And then, I felt a calling. A silent impulse made me look toward the city center. There, in the heart of that world, a cathedral colossal stood up. Its towers seemed to touch infinity, and its structure was not solid, but a fusion of lights, colors, and vibration. That's where I needed to go. The cathedral before me was impossible to describe with human words. Its towers seemed to extend beyond the sky itself. Its structure vibrated between shapes, colors, and an energy that I felt not only with my eyes, but with my very soul. It was not made of stone or any earthly material, but of living light. There was a door, but it wasn't fixed. It changed shape every moment, as if it recognized my presence and was waiting for me. With a simple thought, I allowed myself to cross it. The interior was even grander. There was no ceiling or walls in the traditional way, just infinite space, filled with a golden glow that pulsed like an immense heart. The ground beneath my feet felt solid, but at the same time liquid. And then they appeared. At the end of that immense corridor of light, three entities, they were waiting for me. They had no faces. They had no fixed shapes. Their bodies were composed of a constant flow of energy, changing color and intensity like living stars. Even without features, I felt his presence, wisdom, compassion, immensity. I knew they weren't there to judge me, but I also knew something was about to happen. Something that would change everything. One of them raised her hand, or something that looked like a hand, and in front of me, a box appeared. It was small, delicate, made of an unknown substance that seemed to contain the universe itself. There were stars within it, entire constellations spinning in spirals of energy. I didn't need to ask what it was. I knew. The box contained my whole life. The big three did not speak. But a voice, perhaps my own conscience, whispered in my mind, "Are you ready to see?" Fear crept inside me for the first time, but I knew I couldn't back down. With a hesitant movement, I opened the box. As soon as I opened the box, I was swallowed by a whirlwind of light and memories. I didn't just see images, I would relive. Each scene of my life unfolded before me as if I were there again, not as a spectator, but feeling it all. Exactly like the first time. It started in childhood. I saw little Sable running through my grandmother's yard, the smell of freshly cut grass filling the air. I felt the pure joy of a worry-free summer day. But then, the scenario changed. I saw moments I didn't want to remember. Words spoken in the heat of anger, small acts of impatience. People I hurt without realizing it. The worst part wasn't just watching, but feel what others felt because of me. When I saw a scene where, at 16 years old, I was cruel to a friend who needed me, I felt her pain, as if it were my own. The tightness in the chest, the silent humiliation, the loneliness that my attitude caused. I wanted to look away, but it was impossible. The life review. It wasn't judgment. It was understanding. The big three didn't condemn me, but they allowed me fully understand the impact I had on the world. The weather there was strange. Some memories passed quickly. Others lasted as long as they seemed hours. In particular, the most important moments, those in which my actions actually shaped someone's destiny. I saw my mother crying silently in the kitchen after we argued. My boss reading my resignation letter and feeling betrayed. I saw Elliot alone on the couch holding his cell phone and waiting for a message from me that never came. But it wasn't just the mistakes. I saw it when, without realizing it, I did small kindnesses that changed someone's life. The day I smiled at a stranger on the street, and that stopped her from giving up on life. The time I comforted a friend without knowing he was on the verge of breaking down. Every act of love, every gesture of compassion expanded like waves in an infinite ocean. My life, it was much more than I imagined. When the last memory faded, I was crying. Now you understand. The voice did not come from outside. It came from within. The big three were watching me, or at least that was the feeling. Their energy remained unchanged, without judgment, without expectation, just waiting for my response. "Yes," I whispered. And then, for the first time, one of them spoke. "So it's time to go back." I felt a shiver run through my being. To go back? I didn't want to go back. Not now. Everything in that place seemed more real than anything I had ever felt on Earth. Here there was no fear, pain, or loneliness. I understood everything. I saw everything clearly. Every moment of my existence had a purpose and impact, and now I understood. Down below in the physical world, my life seemed distant, almost like a forgotten dream. What was there for me there? Accounts payable, everyday problems, the constant weight of uncertainty. No, I didn't want to go back. Please let me stay. My voice came not as a sound, but as a thought projected into the space between us. The big three did not respond. There was no need. They knew. It was then that I felt the touch on my shoulder. Again. The same feeling as before, Light, but irresistible. Like an invisible thread pulling me back to a place I no longer belonged. The light around me began to change. The golden glow became whitish, undefined, as if that world was falling apart around me. Suddenly, I was in an empty space. White. No floor, no ceiling, no walls, just absolute infinity. I stood there, waiting, without understanding what was happening. It was then that I saw someone approaching. It was an indistinct figure at first, but as it progressed, it became clearer. A man, tall, wearing something like white robes that flowed like mist around him. His face was familiar, but I couldn't place where I knew him from. He stopped in front of me and smiled. "Linda, you shouldn't be here. You must return to Earth." My soul revolted. Why? I learned. I saw everything. What's the point of coming back? He didn't respond with words. He just looked at me, and in his eyes was the answer. I still had something to do. Something that not even I myself understood. And then, everything fell apart. The white was replaced by a feeling of pressure, weight, pain. Suddenly, I was back. Pain was the first thing I felt. It was a brutal shock, as if my body had been thrown back to reality with too much force. I was stuck, suffocating. Something was blocking my throat. Instinctively, I tried to suck in air, but my lungs burned and a violent reflex made me cough. It was at that moment that I realized that someone was removing the tubes from my throat. My eyes opened abruptly, but the light was too bright. Everything was blurry, distorted. I heard agitated voices around me, phrases said hastily. "She's waking up." Pressure rising, heart rate stabilizing. "Sable, calm down. You are safe." My hands moved on their own, trying to pry away whatever was choking me. The doctor held my wrists firmly, but his touch wasn't aggressive, just firm. "Breathe slowly. You are in the hospital." Hospital? My mind still couldn't process it. My body was shaking, my heart was beating uncontrollably. A second ago, I was in a place where everything was peace. Now he was back to the weight of flesh, the chaos of sounds, the oppressive feeling of gravity. It was then that I felt something else, a hand holding mine. I turned my face and saw Elliot. He was there, sitting next to me. His eyes were red and swollen. His face held a mix of exhaustion, disbelief, and relief so profound he looked like he was about to collapse. "Oh my God, Sable." His voice trailed off. He squeezed my hand like he was afraid I would disappear again. My throat burned. My voice was hoarse. "How long?" He blinked, looking confused by the question. 14 minutes. His hand shook. "You were dead, Sable." 14 minutes. I wanted to tell him it wasn't 14 minutes, which for me were years. But how to explain? How can we put into words something that transcends everything we know? My eyes filled with tears. I was back. But a part of me. I would never again fully belong to this world. Epilogue: Life after death. Now I live carrying this truth with me. The sky. It's not a judgment, but a learning experience. Time, as we think, does not exist. And what we do for each other matters more than we can imagine. Since then, my life has never been the same. Elliot tries to understand. He asks questions, but he doesn't know if he believes them. I don't know if I want him to believe it either. Maybe some things can't be explained. But I know one thing for sure. I went to the other side and came back. And one day, I know I'll come home. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.